Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Hawkeye fans, to Punting is Winning, the All-Iowa podcast. We are your hosts, Keith and JD, back for another show. Football season has now officially wrapped up after the national championship game last week. Congratulations to the Ohio State Buckeyes in the Big Ten Conference for a second consecutive national championship. This turned out to be a better game than I thought. I think actually Ohio State pretty much dominated the game from a stats point. It seemed like late in the game they kind of, outside of that long pass to Jeremiah Smith there on third down, I thought, are we seeing Ryan Dable a Kirk Ferentz here?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing.
But then he, right after I sent that to you, he threw that long pass there on that third down, and they got it down inside the 10, and then just basically sat on it at that point. So, yeah, congratulations to Ohio State and the Big Ten Conference for another national championship.
I don't root for.
That puts a big bow on the college football season.
Yeah, you'll find it hard for me to root for Ohio State, but when they play Notre Dame, it just becomes a situation where it's the lesser of two evils, and I have to pick Ohio State at that point because I just don't care for Notre Dame. And I'm always going to root for, I'm going to try to root for a team that's based out of a Big Ten conference because, it just makes the conference look better. It makes it look, just makes Iowa feel better about their season. I don't know. Just,
yeah.
Just
that's
call me a homer, I guess.
Exactly it. And it's fun to see the SEC talking heads as heads explode. So I have to admit that the Big Ten has won 2 in a row, and that
they're in crisis
college
mode.
Football may be switching.
Yeah, they're in crisis mode. They're down there scratching their heads. They don't know why that the northern teams are now starting to dominate. Well, it's just like anything in the world. There's always a cycle to everything. You're up one time, you're down the next. It's just, they'll have their day coming up where they'll be good for several years in a row, and then Big Ten will be back, and then maybe even the Big 12 might sprinkle one in once in a great while where they have a team that's exceptional. It's just a cycle. There's nothing more than that. It's just right now the Big Ten's up on that cycle and the SEC's down, and we'll see how this continues. If it continues, this whole, paying players from the actual colleges themselves, I don't know if that's going to even the playing field or if NIL is still going to dominate the landscape of college football, but we'll see. It might change things a little bit, but I doubt if it changes things very much.
Yeah. All right, so let's cover the question of the week last week.
Yeah, last week's question of the week is we asked the Hawkeye faithful, what do you feel like how the men's and women's basketball teams are going to finish for the season? Just based on where they were at that point. We did get some answers. Most of them were kind of negative. That's fine. They weren't looking real good at this point last week. A couple said not even above 500 for both. One said neither will make the NCAA tournament. And then one said maybe the NIT for the women. So nobody really had anything good to say. Just kind of they weren't showing anything to anybody. So they were kind of down on them a little bit. And, I still think those are probably going to be accurate predictions. I'm not going to say they're not going to be accurate. But Iowa has that chance. They have an opportunity. The men and women both have an opportunity to get on a run, kind of fix what ails them right now, and potentially, finish in the upper half of the Big Ten and make the tournaments.
There's still time to right the ship.
There is still time. There just needs to be there's less and less
a sense of urgency.
Yeah, there's less and less. They're on that edge. And they just don't have that leeway to screw up, mess up, lose a game like to Minnesota at home. Those are the kind of things you just cannot do and expect to make the tournament. You're walking a thin line right now. So, there's
and
time.
Honestly, if they're on the bubble at the end of the year, that's the game they're going to have to look back at and say,
that'll be the game that'll keep them out if that's where they're at.
Although
absolutely.
Minnesota is playing well.
Yeah, they won 3 in a row, I think. Didn't they beat Oregon the other night? Yeah. So maybe they figured something out and they're going to go on a little run. There's nothing that says that if Minnesota can go on a run, Iowa can't go on a run. It's just sometimes it comes down to where you're playing and who you're playing at that time. So, if you can get some of the lower teams at home, like 2 or 3 in a row, you can go 2 or 3 in a row, or you can, I'd rather catch a lower rated team on their court, and maybe you'd have a better chance of beating them on their court as opposed to, having them on our court where you kind of know you're going to win, but nothing's guaranteed. Look at Minnesota. We talked about this, last week, that Iowa should be getting right this week. They split.
Luckily.
Should have been 2-0. But
well, let's talk about the team that was on the bigger stretch of roughness.
Losing. Yeah, Iowa women will go there. They took a trip out to the West Coast, and they've already played Oregon. Well, they were on the West Coast trip, so they decided to go in and play Seattle, in Seattle against Washington, the Huskies. And they did win the game handily, 85-61. They were again without Hannah Stolke. She stayed home with her concussion. But Iowa was led by Lucy Olson's 20 points on 8 of 8 shooting and 4 of 4 from the three-point line, which is excellent. We needed her to kind of snap out of that streak she was in. She's kind of in a little bit of a funk, and she got snapped out of that. Ava Hayden led Iowa with 6 rebounds. That was nice to see out of the freshman. I'd like to see her play just a little bit more, maybe, going forward. It's only going to help you next year. Right. Iowa shot the ball as well as I've seen Iowa shoot the ball in probably 4 years. I mean, even when Caitlin was there, just outstanding shooting. They just couldn't miss. In fact, I think at one point they were 9 for 9 from 3-point line as a team.
Said we need to petition the NCAA to be able to play all our games there.
Yeah, let's
shoot well there.
Let's play at Washington every time. But Iowa was 72% from the field, 69% from 3-point line. Kind of a meager 71% from the free throw line. Seems like the easiest shot was the one that they had the most trouble with. Iowa did win the rebound battle by doubling Washington. Of course, when you shoot as good as you do, as you did at Washington, they're not going to get a lot of rebounds. So you had 28-14 on that stat. So one of the bad things, though, and it's been their issue all year, is turnovers. Iowa had 23 turnovers that game. A lot of them were kind of late in the game when Washington started to kind of put on a full court pressure, and that I would put some further down the bench people in, some girls down the bench that didn't play a lot. And so, I think a lot of your turnovers came up late.
I was going to talk a little bit about that. I think, I understand from a coaching standpoint that you got to work on all sorts of things. And the old adage is you play the game until the final whistle or until the horn sounds, whatever. I get that. But you played 36 minutes of that game, passive defense. And in the last 4 minutes, when Iowa brings in the end of their bench, you full court press them the last 4 minutes. That seemed to me, and that brought me up to thinking about back in the days when we played, or we were in high school, not necessarily when we played, but there was a team in our conference that did just the opposite. They were winning, they pressed you all game long. It didn't matter how bad they were hit. They could be up 70-12, and they're still pressing full court all game long with their starters in, or half of their starters in. And that was what Washington was doing. All their starters were still in. We had all of our bench players in. And obviously the bench players struggled to get the ball across half court a lot of times. So they took a 35-point deficit and cut it to, 25, 26, something like that.
24.
Yeah. So, I thought that's kind of that's kind of a Bush League move to do. Again, I understand that you play until the final horn, whatever. And I've complained about it before where people talk about, well, you can't call that foul in that situation. Well, it's a foul at the beginning of the game. It's a foul at the end of the game. If you can press at the beginning, you should be able to press at the end. But common decorum, when you're down 30 plus points, you don't press in the last 4 minutes if you haven't done it all game. And you don't press when they bring in people who don't get a lot. Because you're not teaching your team anything other than, okay, yeah, you're better than their bench, the end of their bench. Okay, great. Something you can clap your hands about. And you're telling the end of Iowa's bench is, you suck. You can't handle the pressure. Which, okay, maybe that's what they need to see. I don't know. But it still kind of throws a false message to your team as, oh, well, look, you guys did great in the last 4 minutes. This is what we need. And okay, maybe that's the motivating factor in it. I don't know. But I thought it was kind of cheap to do that.
Yeah, it was kind of a Bush League move on their part. But by the same token, I think now anymore, margin of victory is a little bit of a telling tale on when it comes down to when you're on the bubble, how, that kind of thing might be something that they look at.
If I saw him on the bubble and I said, what's the difference between losing by 24 and losing by 32? Nothing.
Yeah.
You got blown out. You weren't in the game.
Right.
So
right.
It doesn't, whatever.
Well, one good thing is Iowa snapped that 5-game losing streak they were on.
And
they have a chance. And they did look very good doing it. And now they have a chance to come home and maybe extend their winning streak to 2 games. They've got Northwestern coming up on Tuesday night. Mm-hmm. Northwestern is 7-11 overall and 0-7 in the Big Ten. And Iowa improved to 13-7 overall and 3-6 in the conference. So there's a little work to be done there. I'm going to get you back over to over 500. And then next week on Sunday, Caitlin Clark Day, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa hosts 18-1 as of right now, 18-1 USC, and 8-0 in the conference, and they are winners of 14 straight. So that's a tall task for the Hawks coming up on Sunday, but we have a big crowd. Things can happen.
High quality recruits in attendance this weekend.
Big time recruits, and
so you
for
really
the game.
Want to show out.
Hopefully we can get Hannah back. I don't know if she's going to go tonight. I haven't heard. But hopefully for Sunday for sure.
She's tomorrow, right?
I'm sorry. Yeah, tomorrow, not tonight. Tonight's the men's game.
Men play tonight.
Yeah, tomorrow night. So that's it. That's what they have, and I wish them luck. I hope that they can keep it going against Northwestern, and everybody can stay healthy and make a run towards the end of the season and finish up strong and make the tournament.
The one thing I will say about that, and as well, like you said, as well as they played against Washington, the turnovers are still a problem, and you can't expect to be shooting 70% virtually across the board in all categories every game. So, yeah, you won big time. Count your blessings. That's great. If you're shooting at a normal clip, that's a much, much closer game with all those turnovers. So you've got to get that wrangled up, and that's got to be the point of emphasis. Because really, if you think about it, shooting is contagious. So once they start hitting, everybody starts hitting. It's turnovers. If you can get that under control and you can make that the point of emphasis of something that you have to make, you have to get cleaned up.
Yeah.
They'll be fine.
Right.
There's still plenty of winnable games on their schedule. I'd say outside of like USC and UCLA, I don't think there's another team on the schedule that they can't beat. And I'm not saying they can't beat UCLA or USC. That's very tall tasks. So the fact that they have both of them at home is a great thing. So you could knock one of them off. But I think outside of those guys, the rest of the conference, you can stack up with the rest of the conference.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you can win those games, you're right back in this thing.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's a possibility that they could go on a run, and it's a distinct possibility. I think they have a more. If you were to put a gun to my head, I'd say right now, if you were to ask me of the 2 teams, the men or the women, which one do you see having the best chance to go to the NCAA tournament? I would say that the women do. At this point, now in a couple of weeks, if the women continue to to lose and the men start picking it up, I'd have to, of course, change. But right now, if I was going to be a betting man, and I'm not, I would bet on the women to make the tournament and men not to make the tournament.
Yeah, but I would agree because I think they have a better shot, just simply because, again, outside of those two teams, I think they stack up against everybody else.
Mm.
So,
yeah.
Maybe the Ohio State game will be a little tough. It's going to be tough. That's no doubt about that. But not a team that you look at it and say, oh, that's definitely a loss.
Right.
And I hate to say anything's definitely a loss because every game you pull an upset. Everybody has that. I mean, you go back to the men's side and look at the Todd Licklider years, and I remember a Purdue team coming in and Iowa beat them. And there was no way on paper and no way in anybody's mind that was ever going to happen. So, never say never, but...
Speaking of the men's team...
Yes.
Iowa went out on a West Coast trip last weekend, came back 0-2. Chance to get the ship righted when they came back into the friendly confines of Carver Hawkeye Arena, playing last place Minnesota. Unfortunately, Iowa extended their losing streak to 3 on a 72-67 loss. Iowa was led by Peyton Sanford's 21 points and 10 rebounds. That was a double-double. And Owen Freeman's 21 points and 8 rebounds. Iowa shot 46% from the floor, but they shot 14% from three-point line, a 3 of 21 shooting, and that's what beat them. Mm-hmm. Minnesota out-rebounded Iowa 35-31, so that wasn't too bad. Iowa had 7 turnovers. That's not too bad. I have it written down here that if you win by the 3, you also die by the 3. And they definitely did die by the 3.
Yep.
It is not good to lose to Minnesota at home, a last place team. Now, we have seen now that Minnesota has won 3 in a row, including that middle game with Iowa. So they beat Michigan, Iowa, and then they beat Oregon. So they are kind of a little bit of an upswing.
2 ranked teams.
2 ranked teams out of the 3.
I think Oregon's still ranked.
Yeah, they were 15th, I believe.
Okay.
So, it's disappointing that they lost the game, especially losing it at home. That was definitely a winnable game for Iowa, and it should have been a win for Iowa. When you go out and shoot 3 for 21 from three-point line and just...
At home.
Yeah, at home. And I can understand in a strange environment, if you're going out to Seattle, Washington, and you've never played out there before, and you just don't have it from three-point line, I get it. But you're at home. One of the things I do want to mention before we get too far into the next game, one of the things that I guess kind of bugs me a little bit is that, and I realize it was a Tuesday night, 8 o'clock, and it was cold as all get out outside. It was probably one of the coldest days that we've had. But there was maybe 5,000 in the arena. Maybe.
Yeah,
I've heard people say less than that.
Yeah.
How long do you think that the University of Iowa can withstand 5,000 people in a crowd and maybe 8,000 people that bought tickets and then just didn't show up to some of them? How long do you think that's going to, that stuff doesn't go unnoticed, believe me. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to have to step up and make a decision on something coming up here. Now, you know what I'm talking about with Fram McCaffrey. He's done a great job lately with getting in some recruits. There's some really nice recruits that he's gotten in. But what do you do at the end of the season when your crowds are diminished and you're just not making any money, like you think you should be? When you got a 14,000+ seat stadium or field house, essentially, in this situation, and you're only selling, maybe 8,000 tickets, but only 5,000 people are showing up to get their Carver cones and their sodas and their popcorns and sitting on their hands. And, how long are you going to be able to withstand that when you're starting to have to pay the players and you're not making a lot coming in, from ticket sales and concessions and that kind of thing. So is there going to be a decision made at the end of the year, or are they just going to go with status quo and hope that next year that the fans come back?
Well, and to piggyback off of that, and we're guilty because we weren't there.
No, we weren't.
I can't. It's too far of a drive for me with my job, and I couldn't do that. But when you can say, oh well, they just got blown out on the West Coast by USC and UCLA. They gave up hundreds of points. They, okay, the women were coming off of a 5-game losing streak, and you'll still show up tomorrow night. There'll still be 14,000 people in there tomorrow night. So don't say that, and that's a Tuesday night. That's, honestly, the Tuesday night at 7 o'clock would be almost ideal time frame. You get out of there at a decent enough time that if you're within a 2-hour drive of Iowa City, you're getting home before midnight, and you're able to get off work and get to Iowa City by game time. But, I get that people are more excited about the women's team than they are the men's team, but you want to be excited about the men's team with the people that they have on that squad. You got to go see them to be able to keep them. And again, I'm not telling people that I'm disappointed in them because they're not buying tickets and they're not going, because I'm in the same boat. I just can't do it right now. I just can't leave on a weeknight and go to Iowa City. It's too far of a drive. My job is on call type thing, so I don't have that opportunity. But I'm sure that's not the case with everybody. So, the point being is, even if they're not doing well, get out and support them. Maybe that support that we have or that we aren't giving them is the deciding factor in the way they play sometimes. They're like cashing in. It's, hey, nobody's really coming to watch us. Why should we care? Because you look at the games that they've had, the Indiana game. They had, 10, 11,000 people there at that game. Now, granted, that's still under capacity, but look at how well they played and how well the crowd got behind how they were playing. I don't know. I'm not faulting Iowa fans because they had not there. We want to keep the team engaged and we want to root for a exciting product. You got to go to the games to root for them, and you got to be able to keep them excited as well, because believe me, they're kids. They understand that if there's nobody in the crowd, they're down. It'll get them down. Why am I here? Why am I putting on this performance for nobody?
Yeah,
anyway,
my point is not necessarily against the fans themselves. My point is that I think that the fan base has lost interest just over time in watching, a team that only plays one-dimensionally. They don't play defense particularly well, and they haven't ever really played defense particularly well. And I think that, not playing defense is going to get you beat a lot of times when you're not shooting well. And we've talked about that time and time and time again. So, I don't know if it's Franny fatigue or what with people. I know it's a little bit with me. I'm a little tired of it. And I think that there's some people out there saying things like, have you watched his demeanor in this year or the last several games? It's kind of a stand on the sidelines with your hands in your pockets and watch the game. It doesn't seem like he's as fiery as he's been. I know I think he's got 2 years left on his contract. I don't know what the buyout is. I've heard anywhere between $4 and $6 million. What do you do at the end of the season if you're Beth Getz? Do you offer him a settlement to walk away? Do you put pressure on him to quit? Does he quit on his own to go fit family in Indiana? There's a lot of different ways this could go down. And I think that the telling sign right now is the fans aren't coming. We'll see tonight. Tonight is a 7 o'clock game. It's not an 8 o'clock game, and it is a Monday. The weather's nice out. It's 40 plus degrees outside, almost 50. There's no reason why people can't go to a 7 o'clock game.
But this is in Columbus, though.
Oh, that's right. This is in Columbus. I'm sorry. This is in Columbus. I thought this was a away game.
They'll show up there.
But they'll show up there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Columbus, the people in Columbus will show up. And there might even be some Hawkeye fans out there that'll show up. So forget what I said about not showing up tonight. That's a mental mistake there. But yeah, I don't know. We have to get Iowa figured out here and bring some excitement back to Carver. And I think then, I don't know what the options are. Your options are to get a new coach. This will test Beth Getz. Her first real hire was Jan Jensen, and that was kind of a slam dunk, no brainer type thing. She didn't really have to work hard for that one. let's see what she can do if she needs to pull a men's basketball coach. I'm interested in see what she can get. Now, do you want to go after somebody? Here's the question. We're going off on a little tangent here. Sorry. Do you want to go off on we're going to go off on a little tangent. And here's the deal. Do you want to get a coach that's been at a program for years and years and years that maybe is on the way out? Or do you want to get a young up and comer that hasn't really proven himself other than maybe 1 year with a program that's on a lower level? Come to mind is the guy that was at Northwest Missouri that went to Drake and he's setting the world on fire at Drake. Somebody like that, maybe not that low down. Maybe somebody that's at somebody that's setting the world at like Alcorn State or someplace like that they're really doing well and he's really recruited well. And do you take a chance on somebody like that? Do you try to get somebody at the Power 4 level that's already at a Power 4 school? I'm not sure where you go, and I'm sure that Beth should sit down and have a list of people who may be opportunity to bring them in and have them look at the program. If she doesn't, that's on her. I guess she should have that. Should have that on even all of them. I should have that on the wrestling team. She should have lists of names that could be possible replacements for anybody that leaves for whatever reason. I mean, wrestling coach Tom Brands could just say, "Yeah, I think I'm going to go coach Arizona State this year. I'm out of my contract, so goodbye, Iowa." I don't think he'll do that. I think he's too. This is his home. But you have to be prepared for that because right now there's nothing guaranteed.
Well, I'd look more along the lines of, what if one of these coaches gets themselves into legal trouble and you have to fire them? You got to have somebody there. You got to have something.
Yeah, possibility.
And I'm not saying that I think that any of those coaches have those morals to have that happen to them, but we had Steve Alford here. Look at the Pierre Pierce situation.
Yeah,
it wasn't even him. It was Pierre Pierce that caused him. And it was him. Don't get me wrong, because he turned a blind eye to it.
Yeah,
but it wasn't his. He didn't get the ball rolling on it. He just didn't stop the ball from rolling.
right.
So you situations like that where you better have a contingency plan just in case something like that happens.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to continue down that road, but
because we still have another game this week that we have to talk about.
Yeah. So Friday night, there was a home game also. It's 2 home games this week with Penn State. A 76-75, kind of a thrilling game. It shouldn't have been, but Iowa did snap that 3-game losing streak, the 2 games on the West Coast and into Minnesota. Iowa was paced by Owen Freeman, 16 points and 9 rebounds. Iowa really had a pretty balanced scoring attack for that game. There was really no, like most people were like 8, 9, 10, 11. The only other one I believe that had it was 16 points with Drew Thalwell had 16 also. So, but Josh Dix also had 8 assists. Did you know that? That was higher on the assist list. You didn't see a lot of assists. Iowa shot 50% from the field, 48% from the 3-point line, and 60% from the free throw line. And we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Penn State won the rebounding battle 33-30, so that's fairly close. Iowa did commit 9 turnovers, which was I'm fine with 9 turnovers. Anything under 10, I'm good with. Iowa, unfortunately, in the second half was 1 for 7 from the 3-point or free throw line, and especially late, they just could not get a free throw to save their life. And what that did was that opened the door for Penn State to come back, and missing a free throw at the end, it gave Penn State 2 opportunities to shoot a last-second shot to win because Iowa was only up at the 1 point, 76-75. And Penn State had 2 opportunities, golden opportunities. And if you really want to know the truth, the third opportunity he gotten that ball off in time and made it, it would have been over. So that, they even had another chance to shoot a free throw to actually keep it to, a 3-point game, but they missed the front end of a 1-and-1. It just, it was like, how can we shoot ourselves in the foot? And that's exactly how you do it, is miss free throws at the end. And then Penn State was making shots. They luckily didn't make the shot at the end to win it. And Iowa was able to escape with a 76-75 win. I'd never seen a team that wanted to try to lose a game so fast in their life as they did the other night.
And their whole philosophy, they went very passive in the last 2.5 minutes.
Well,
They had a 10-point lead, and then it was like, we want to milk the clock again. And I hate to use Kirk Ferentz as an example, but it was try to take the air out of the ball as much as you can, which is fine. But if you're not making free throws, that's a bad philosophy, because if they foul you, they've still got the time. They'll run down, and at that point, we weren't even stopping them. There were times in that game we were playing what I considered adequate defense. Not stellar by any means, but adequate. If you can play adequate enough defense throughout the game, you can win some of those games.
mm-hmm.
But I just felt like they just went out of their element in the last 2.5, 3 minutes, stopped doing what got them where they built that 10-point lead. It's have faith in your guys, because they're not the type of team that turns the ball over all the time. So, yeah, I get you want to run the clock, you want to bleed the clock as much as you can, but don't go, okay, well, you got a 25-second shot clock, we're going to run 24 seconds off and throw up a desperation shot with 1 second left. You can run it down to 6, 7 seconds before you're taking that shot. You still took 20 seconds off the clock. It's different than when you're normally going down and taking a shot within the first 8, 9 seconds of the shot clock. You're still playing within the parameters of what's gotten you there to an extent. So I just felt like they just he slowed them down to bleed the clock, and that's not their game. And when they did that, they didn't know what to do. That's when you were allowing guys like Ace Baldwin to do what he does best, which is strip the ball from somebody, come up with big steals. You kind of played right into their hands at that point. And I just felt like that if they'd lost that game, that would have been what I'd have looked at, was those last 3 minutes. Yes, the free throw shooting was bad, but the change of offensive philosophy in those last 3 minutes was huge, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if I disagree with you. I can't think of any other reason why they kind of went, like I said, you said passive. They did go passive. They kind of went like to the point of, let's just burn up as much clock. Let's limit possessions. And that's fine if you're up 15-20, but when you're down or you're up 10 and the other team is starting to really put a lot of pressure on you, you really kind of almost can't do that. You kind of have to read the room, understand what they're trying to do. And they were getting really crazy on the defensive end. And, I think there were some times that maybe there should have been a few calls that weren't made, but that's okay. It's fine.
Or were made that shouldn't have been
or
made.
were made that shouldn't have been made. Yeah. Going forward, I guess with Iowa, it's now 13-7 and 4-5 in the conference. We're recording this on Monday, so there's a game tonight, and it is, at Ohio State. Ohio State is 11-8 overall and 3-5 in the conference. So they're right there with Iowa, kind of like next to each other in the standings.
They're Jekyll and Hyde, though.
Yeah, they're up and down. You don't know what you're going to get with them from week to week, day to day, game to game.
This could be a game that Iowa goes into Columbus and beats them by 25, or it could be a game that Iowa goes into Columbus and gets beat by 25.
Yeah, these are so hard to predict because winning on the road in the Big Ten is difficult. But then when you get a team that, like you just said, Jekyll and Hyde, that you just don't know what to expect from them from day to day. Anything can happen. Yeah. So I don't know. Going forward,
good luck for it.
Going forward, they have a week off, and then they have Purdue on the 4th of February, and that is a home game. Yikes.
Because usually we have to play Purdue the first time at West Lafayette, and it's usually not a Purdue site.
Yeah. But, we're going to flip over now and talk a little bit about the football team and do some, because I can't do a podcast without talking about football a little bit. It just doesn't seem like it anyway. So let's go through. We talked about the quarterback room a couple weeks ago. Let's talk about the running back room this time. And I will let you take that because you've got some information on the running backs that might be noteworthy.
Yep. I went through and did some research on the running backs that are on the roster, scholarship running backs that are on the roster. Kamari Moulton, Jazz Patterson, Xavier Williams, Brevin Dahl, and then the incoming freshman of Nathan McNeil, and just kind of compared what they were all about. And we kind of are looking at this since when 2024 started. Kamari Moulton was listed as the starter above Caleb Johnson. So there's a reason there that happened. Not only just because Caleb was suspended for that first half of that first game, but I think they had intentions of starting him over Caleb Johnson anyway. So there's a reason there. And he was the starter in the Music City Bowl when Caleb had opted out and had a very good game, rushed for 96 yards on 14 carries. He definitely showed that he could be a lead back, and he has some power to him. Throughout the 2024 year, he had played in 12 games. He had 473 yards rushing, which is a 5.6 yard per carry average. And he did have a career high of 114 against Maryland, which I think Caleb had 140 against Maryland. So you had two, first time in a long time that you had two backs over 100 yards. So I think he can be the bell cow, but if he can't, you've got guys behind him that have the ability. I just think that the outlook with Moulton is that he has the leg up at this point. I think he's earned the trust of him, other than I think he did have a couple of fumbles that were key this year that some people probably said, yep, well, that's the last we'll see him. And he did get back in, though. So I think he has Liddell Betts' confidence. So I think he'll start him. He'll be the start of the year. He'll be the number one guy. Not saying definitely that he is going to stay at the number one guy. I hope he does. That just means that he's that much better than I think he is. But I think a guy that could really push him is a guy like Jazz Patterson, who is not quite the same type of back. Jazz is going to want to run you over. And he's not built for the kind of guy that's going to run you over, but that's what he wants to do. And I think he can. He played in 10 games this last year, 63 carries, 312 yards, a 4.9 yard average, a couple of touchdowns, and he had a log of 39. So he's very capable, and we've seen it. You've seen it for 2 years that he has the ability to be the bell cow. I just think right now, if you put him in perspective, he's 1B, we'll say. And I think that means, based on that, I think you're going to see a lot of Moulton and Patterson getting splits on the carries. It's going to be a pretty even mix, at least to start the year. From a developmental standpoint, he's worked on improving his route running. He's got the hands that he could be a receiver out of the backfield. He's very, very team-oriented in his mindset. He's got pretty good work ethic from everything I've heard. And everything I've heard, loves the University of Iowa. So I'm rooting for him. I think that, if I was running into the season right now with the running back room that I had here, I would say that's 1A and 1B. Now, behind him, or behind them, we have Xavier Williams, who's a true freshman, getting ready for his redshirt freshman year. He was a standout high school running back. Senior year, rushed for 13 touchdowns and 1,450 yards. And that was despite having a partially torn ACL as a senior. So, dude's tough. He did not have a whole lot of opportunities out of high school. He was recruited by some MAC schools, and Old Dominion was another one. But I think he's got some versatility. He was also a basketball player in high school, so he's a two-sport athlete. Kirk Ferentz likes those types of guys. And I know that Liddell Betts had some really nice things to say about him in bowl prep. So I think there's an opportunity. He's going to get some carries. If I was to say on the year at this point, barring any injuries, I'd say we're looking at probably 20 to 30 carries on the year total for him, just based on what, let's just assume that there are no injuries to the running back position. He's 6 foot 220, so he has the size. He's more of a power back, but he does have some speed. Kind of reminds me kind of a Sean Green style, not over blazing speed, but got that power, and he can get that burst. And then we come to the one that I think is probably the one that's most intriguing, is Brevin Dahl.
Yeah.
Brevin Dahl, the kid's a speed burner. I think people have said, and I think maybe the whole thing with this is the fact that he comes out of ADM. Comparisons to Niall Kinnick, the type of persona that he has when it comes to in the town. That was just, he was all world for the town. He was it. Very good in high school. He has showcased some of that in his first year in practices based on things that I've heard. While he was at ADM, he rushed for almost 3,600 yards and over 50 touchdowns. So he set a lot of records there. He was a track star, ran the 200. He was a state record holder at the 4x200 relay team. Didn't see any game action in 2024, but I think he is going to make an impact on special teams to start the year. You could see him possibly back as a kick returner with Legion. I think it's probably a 99.9% chance that Caton Legion's back for another year. There's a 0.1% chance that he'll still leave. I don't know if I don't think he's had to declare yet, have they?
It's in April, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know if, I'm assuming he'll be back, and that's, but if you want to run dual safeties on kickoffs, I think there's your two.
Yeah.
So I think he's got a bright career ahead of him, and I think you'll see him. He may get 20 to 25 carries, but I think you'll see him on some end arounds, and I think you'll see him running out of the slot a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's splitting time with a guy like Terrell Washington at the slot, because I think they're both of the running back mindset. I could have put Terrell Washington on here as a running back as well. I hesitated to do that because I think I look at him more as a slot receiver right now, just based on the fact that that's where he made his bread and butter last year. He did run a few plays out of the backfield, so yeah, I mean, you could throw him back in there. It might be a situation where, hey, we've looked at our wide receivers, we've got enough, let's put him back in the running back room. We'll see when it comes time through spring practice and into the fall, but another name to watch out for. But the last guy on the list was Nathan McNeil. He's the incoming recruit. He also has the ability to be a slot receiver. He does have a short burst of quickness off the line. During his senior year, he had 80 carries for 583 yards and 10 touchdowns. But along with that, he also had 59 receptions and almost 1,200 yards and 19 touchdowns. So I think you might look at him as, Iowa recruited him as a running back. He may be one that switches positions. And if that's the case, you might see a situation where him and Terrell Washington make a switch. Terrell goes back to the running back side and Nathan goes to the slot side. It's yet to be seen. That's the coach's decision. We haven't seen him in anything but highlights from high school. 5'11", 195 pounds. So, he's more of until he puts on a little bit of bulk, he's more of a scat back type of thing. So I think maybe the slot is a spot for him. And it could be a situation where, hey, his size, we put him in the slot, and he's okay there. He's not a stellar slot guy. We don't use him a lot. We bring him back when you have guys move on. Maybe Kamar Moulton has a great year, and he's like, oh, well, I'm just going to go ahead and test the NBA or the NFL waters. So you have the option to bring him back. Liddell Betts likes him. He sees him as having a lot of value in that offense at both spots. He was, again, another lightly recruited kid. His offers were Arkansas State and Rhode Island. So I think he could be a potential steal for Iowa. Based on what I've seen out of his film, I really like him. But again, I think I like him more as a receiver than I do as a running back. So that's what the running back room has coming in. This is, again, barring any chance of anything happening in the spring. Guys might transfer out because they don't see time, and you might get transfer in if somebody leaves to replace them. You might see, oh, well, this team lost a running back and they just can't pass up on it.
Yeah,
so as of right now, this is what we're looking at.
I completely agree with everything you said. the thing that intrigues me is that Brevin Dahl, you said that too. I'm excited to see him as much as anything. Of course, he's just up the road from, where I live. And, but I kind of look at McNeil more of a red shirt this year. I don't see him seeing the field the first year, maybe in 26 when he's a redshirt freshman and he'll get some action then. Who knows? Like you said, Kamari could move on. He could still be around. Jazian could still, I think he'd have another year. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of opportunity. If he would happen to redshirt, I think that if he didn't redshirt, I don't think it would be advantageous to him. So I don't know if I was going to redshirt him. I assume that they will, just because they have a pretty good stable of backs.
Unless he comes into the place some slot receiver in the spring and the fall,
and
I think he's going to be a spring.
So good, you just can't keep him off the field.
Yeah, that he's just you got to put him out there.
Yeah.
So I would agree.
And I would love to see that. I honestly would. I'd love to see a kid that comes in freshman, just so good that you just can't keep him off the field because he's so dynamic.
Right.
Those are few and far between, especially when it comes to the University of Iowa. They have a tendency to want to put kids in the red shirt program and bring them up. Yeah, let them learn the system. Let them get their associated, get them used to the culture at Iowa, get them used to the classes, get them everything so that they don't get overwhelmed. And
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that as you look at it from a historical standpoint, Iowa hasn't had a ton of guys that are just game ready as soon as they step on the field as fresh. So you probably try to treat everybody the same. The immediate thought is we're going to redshirt you because we're a developmental program. But if you blow us away, absolutely put you out there.
Yeah, good things.
At least that's the
stuff.
Attitude they should have.
Yeah, good stable of running backs. I think Iowa's set pretty good for that for a while. There's other positions that probably worry me more than the running back room does. So
we'll get to those.
Kind of excited about the running backs and the quarterback situation. I'm kind of anxious to see how that plays out with the injury and the how he progresses through the spring and when he gets cleared to play in June. We'll see. I don't know. I'm anticipating this to be a year where we could be better, but our record may not reflect it just because of the strength of the schedule. And that's okay. As long as I feel like as long as we're making progress towards getting better, then I'm fine with it.
It could be a situation where we have been truly just a quarterback away from being fairly elite.
Right.
And it could be, hey, they can keep up with people now that they've got a quarterback, and because I think our defense is going to take a little bit of a step back.
Yeah,
I think that's just natural. But although they took a step back this year when I didn't expect it. So maybe if we can stay status quo and maybe improve a little bit, we could have another special year on our hands. Yeah. It just depends.
Yeah,
and we don't know injury-wise what other teams are going to have to. We assume that Ohio State and Oregon, the Michigans, the Penn States are all going to be very, very good again next year. But how good is Penn State going to be if Drew Aller goes out? That could be the catalyst that drives their season down the hill. Or, Ohio State I'm not as worried about because they just replaced one 5-star with another 5-star. And they probably just have the same amount of talent because you've got the same type of people you're throwing it to. I don't know so much about Oregon, what their quarterback situation is going to be like, but I assume that
be a new guy.
They'll buy a new guy sometime or somewhere along the lines. So you just don't know though.
Right.
So I'm going to be optimistic like I am every year, and in my mind, Iowa's going to go 12-0 in the regular season every year until they play their first game.
Right. Coming up in I don't know if it'll be next week or it'll be the week after, we're going to talk about our predictions, what we went through last summer, right towards the beginning of the year for football. And we predicted how we thought each team would go in the Big Ten. We're going to go back and revisit that and see if we were way off or if we were right on or somewhere in between. And we're going to do that. We're going to go through that. Coming up, I know one thing, I was really off on Indiana. Yeah. I was so far off on Indiana, it's not even funny.
I was off on Indiana and a lot of them.
Let's, for now, let's wrap up. I know you got some things you need to get done, and I also. Yep. So let's go with the question of the week, and then we'll go wrap up. we're going to go back to the men's basketball for the question of the week. Iowa plays at Ohio State tonight. What the question here is, men's basketball only. What is the all-time record for Iowa and Ohio State in men's basketball?
Head-to-head.
Head-to-head. How many wins has Iowa had? How many wins has Ohio State versus each other? All time. If you can give me that answer, it'll probably be on the broadcast tonight early.
Yeah, probably.
And, this will be easy for everybody because they'll just have to listen to it. But, so that's the question. And we'll come up with a better one next week, hopefully. This is what I came up with like 5 minutes before we did this.
Well, I already have one for
next
you
do.
Week, I believe.
You told me. It's a good one.
So yeah, with that, let's get wrapped up. Let's take care of some business here. If you like the content you've got that we're giving you, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. That'll help us out. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
TikTok.
You're going to find us on TikTok, Twitter. We kind of blew up a little bit on TikTok in places, so I kind of wish some of those guys would actually come over and watch the full episode instead of railing on us for a 30-second clip sometimes. But that's fine. Everybody's got an opinion, and I'm not mad that somebody doesn't agree with me. And I'm assuming somebody's going to not agree with me. I don't agree with myself sometimes. But just make sure that you are liking our videos, subscribing. That helps us out. It helps that algorithm push us through a little bit better. Also, we have our merchandise store available. All the proceeds that we get from the merchandise that we sell is going to go to the Swarm to help get new players, get better players in here, and keep the players that we have. So your contributions there will also help the University of Iowa. I think some of the gear is really cool. It's quality stuff. I actually have mine under my sweatshirt, but my office is a little chilly today, so I'm not going to take it off. But I do have my Punting is Winning shirt on. I would encourage you, if you want something and it's not on our page, feel free to reach out, and I can design something too. It might take me a couple of days to get it out there, but you design it. I'll tell you what, you tell me what you want. And if you come up with something, and if it's not, I'm not talking something that's $100 or whatever. If you say, I would really like to have a pencil case, I don't know, just using that as an example, I'll buy it for you. I'll provide it for you first one, just because you came up with the idea of something I didn't think of. So there you go. Up to about a $15 to $20 value, because I'm not rich.
How about golf balls with our logo on them? That would be something to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd have to look and see. I mean, we set the prices, so
yeah,
we'll see. But you'll see the QR code pop up throughout the video, like if you're a normal subscriber or normal watcher, you see that happen all the time. All you have to do is scan that. It'll take you right to the store. We might start running another promotion here, a spring promotion coming up around the NCAA tournament time or something. Who knows? Just keep an eye on that. But like I said, all the proceeds are going to the Swarm, and to help keep players in Iowa City and bring new players in. So anything you do would be greatly appreciated and will help out. And again, apologies for this being late today. I was actually kind of sick yesterday and didn't have an opportunity to be able to do this. So I said, let's push this off today. So I am going to do my best to get this out as soon as possible. All right. With that, Hawks are in Columbus tonight. So go Hawks.
Go Hawks.